As the English loyalists marched on Orleans, their aim was not to conquer the town in the name of King Edward, but to settle scores and grab plunder.
Get the trebuchets ready and siege the enemy. Medieval Kingdom Wars is a real-time strategy title that aims to deliver a unique grand strategy experience. Set right at the cusp of the 100 Years' War, it promises an epic strategic experience. But does it succeed, or does it fail to live up to the big vision the devs had? Before I answer that, let me explain a little bit more about the game. In Medieval Kingdom Wars, you take control of a lord from one of the many kingdoms in Europe during this tumultuous medieval era. We're talking dukes, counts and such here. You do not have the option of starting off as a king, but you could eventually become one. You plan your strategic conquest, economic growth and research in this rather beautiful strategic map that spans from the Iberian Peninsula, British Isles, Central Europe, all the way east to Austria, Poland and Prussia. Russia isn't in this game. You'll be building up your settlements, unlocking new technology, doing some pretty basic diplomacy and conquering the map one city at a time. This isn't a turn-based game, so it all happens in real time. Here's where it gets a bit confusing. You see, you could also enter the town and build it up in what I call the RTS mode. In this mode, you'll need to use serfs, essentially peasants, to collect resources and use those resources to build up your settlements in the defined building slots. Where it gets confusing is that the game uses three separate types of resource systems. On the strategic map, you use silver, which you gain from taxation, to buy units and build up your settlements. But in the RTS mode, you're using resources such as meat, iron, stone and wood to recruit new units and build new structures. And then there are a bunch of other resources specifically to unlock new research tiers. There's only two ways you could gain these resources for research. One is to win battles, so you get these as loot, and the other is to purchase it using silver. When you are in the RTS mode managing your settlements, the time on the campaign map is paused, so you could build up your towns to your heart's content here. To discourage people from exploiting this, the devs had tweaked this so that happiness in your settlements drops if you're in RTS mode for too long, which is an odd way of balancing things out, which doesn't really quite make much sense. But anyway, once you've got a sizable army, you move them to the next enemy city. Or if you're in an area where your nearest town are owned by other lords within your kingdom, you need to slowly progress taking them out while considering the diplomatic repercussions. Push it too far and the king could declare war on you. A simple gift of silver would do the trick though, and this highlights the bare bones aspect of the diplomacy. So then we come to the battles. You're dropped in the RTS mode and the mechanics are pretty much the same as in the town management mode. You use serfs for collecting resources and livestock for food and recruit new units to replenish your numbers. Battles and sieges have time limits, so as the attacker you can't simply sit back and amass a huge army. Building up the economy and troops is however a rather slow process, which means you're at a disadvantage if your troop numbers are even or lesser than the enemy. This ain't no total war. I found that oftentimes the best strategy is to just rush your blob of units to the enemy's encampment. There are no tactics or strategy here, just select all and roll in with your army. Once I've played a couple of battles, I really had no desire to replay the same boring RTS game with its lack of tactics and strategy. I auto-resolved all my battles. You just have to make sure you have double the numbers of your enemy. Siege battles are a little bit more interesting simply because you'll be dealing with a bunch of defensive walls and other defensive measures like boiling oil and such. It's a messy affair, but at least the variety of units and defenses make it bearable, but not great. Unfortunately, just like the sieges, the entire game is a bit of a mess really. Lack of diplomatic options and essentially stuff to do in the strategic map makes the strategic layer uninteresting. Battles lack any sense of tactics and strategy and devolve into block fights. Just throw your units at the enemy. There's no real incentive to use any tactics or positioning because you really don't have to. The game also has a serious issue of not giving enough feedback and information to the player. For instance, it doesn't explain exactly how much you get after you've upgraded a building or town, why you can't build certain units in a town, and it does a poor job of warning you of impending attacks. It's just a horrible UI overall. There's also a bunch of weird bugs, like there's one that stops you from looking at the details of enemy armies on the strategic map. It keeps deselecting every time you select the enemy. Medieval Kingdom Wars feels like it's pieced together. It's as if they took different games and cobbled them up together in the hopes of making a grand strategy game. It falls way short from the promise, and in my humble opinion, there's zero fun in it. The devs are actively updating the game, but from what I've seen, it's mostly adding more options and depth into the system, which might help a little. But there are certain things in the design, like I mentioned the resource system, that isn't exactly ideal. Medieval Kingdom Wars doesn't just require more depth, it requires massive rework on core systems. It's simply an unfinished game that was released out of early access prematurely. If you've played Medieval Kingdom Wars, what did you think of it? Tell me in the comments below. If you like this video, hit that like button, and if you like the videos I make on this channel, please do subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.